Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 6 of Interview with an NHL Hero here at Heroes of the Crease Goaltending Museum and Memorabilia Limited. My name is Bruce Chiney, your host as well as the owner at Heroes of the Crease. Now, our special guest today had a 10-season-long professional hockey career spanning the UHL, ECHL, AHL, IHL, NHL, and what would eventually become the KHL. He appeared in 4 seasons in the NHL, over 21 career games with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Minnesota Wild. He was a member of Team USA at the 2002 IIHF World Championships. He was a 2003 AHL Calder Cup champion and a 2004 Harry Hap Holmes Memorial Award winner in the AHL. Please welcome my very special guest, Mr. Dieter Kochan.
Hi, thanks
Hello.
for having me.
Absolutely, pleasure's all ours. Welcome to the show.
Looking forward to it.
I look forward to it as well. You're joining esteemed company here with some of our former guests that we've had, and we're very excited to have you here today.
Definitely.
So for all of our viewers who are watching and tuning in live, don't forget that you can also ask your questions live on the side chat bar, or I have the side chat bar. Of course, you have Facebook or YouTube. You write the comments in. If you have a question, you can ask on the side. If it's good and appropriate and Mr. Kochan is interested in answering it, then we'll bring it up on screen for all of you. So, are we ready to begin?
I'm ready.
Alrighty. So let's start off early in your hockey career. We're going back to 1993. So in 1993, you were drafted 98th overall by the Vancouver Canucks after a season which saw you record an impressive 34-8 record with the Kelowna Spartans in the BCJHL. In fact, you were the only player from your team drafted into the NHL. How did you find out that you were drafted, and what did it mean to you knowing that being drafted was a huge step in potentially bringing a hockey dream to life?
To be honest, I didn't even know the draft was that day that it happened. I think I went fishing that morning. I came back. I didn't even know it was the day of the draft.
Oh.
Somebody from Vancouver called on the phone. Obviously, it was landlines back there. So I answered. I thought it was a crank call to begin with. I thought somebody was just joking around.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have been predicted like the 30th goalie or something like that. I think I ended up going a lot earlier than kind of had been predicted. So I wasn't even really paying attention to it, and it caught me off guard. I was, a bit surprised. Obviously, I didn't even know it was the day of the draft, but when I found out, I was obviously really excited, and I had played in Kelowna, so getting drafted by the Canucks was pretty cool. And
oh yeah, of course, yeah, that nice connection because you're already in BC, of course. Never put that.
Yeah, and you think it's, you think you kind of have your path set, and obviously the path completely diverged from where you thought it was going to go. But I mean, it's obviously a huge honor to get drafted, and all players are looking to get drafted and to kind of, have a team show interest in them and hopefully end up playing for that team.
Very interesting. So, 1993-94. Instead of immediately going to the pros like many athletes do, you went the collegiate route instead. You ended up playing for Northern Michigan University while you were working on a degree. Did you ever get an opportunity to attend any NHL training camps prior to or even during your college career?
Back then, you weren't allowed to go to any of the camps. Like now, they let the college guys go, which is it's smart to let them do that and give them that exposure. But I never went to any of the Canucks camps. And then, honestly, I didn't have a very good college career. So coming out of college, I'm at the end of my senior year, I could have had an opportunity to maybe go to their farm team where they're going to take a look at me. I think it was in Syracuse at the time, but I had sprained my knee at the end of my senior year, so I wasn't able to do that. And then, I hadn't really performed to the level where they were interested in signing me coming out of college. So I was pretty much right back to square one, where being drafted really hadn't done what I maybe initially thought it would do for me. But I mean, you obviously have to, it's a business and you got to perform. And if you're not performing, then they find somebody else pretty quick.
Fair enough. Fair there. What did you take in college, if you just don't mind me asking quick here?
I was a biology major, so I was always interested in things outside and doing different things in the outdoors. So I was a biology major.
That still carries through to your today as well. So
yeah, definitely.
We actually did lose one of our streams here, so if you'll give me a second, I'll just upload our YouTube link to the Facebook page. That one is lost, so we'll just hold for 5 seconds while I grab it. All right. So, of course, we lost, like I said, the stream on our Heroes of the Crease page. So I just posted up the YouTube link in there for anyone who might have wanted to tune in there, because computers and technology, they like to be our friend, but sometimes they're not. So such is the case here.
Yeah, definitely not my specialty. So,
so of course, tying in with your collegiate career, we're continuing what we were talking about earlier there. Since you didn't get a chance to go to any training camps or anything like that, how do you feel that college hockey prepared you for the pro ranks, if at all?
I mean, I think the big benefit is you get that 4-year window where guys coming out of major juniors, they have to be ready right away. Where some players it's going to take a little bit longer to develop. So. I mean, college is obviously good for that. Gives them a little more time. For the team, it's good too because it's free development.
Oh, right.
But I mean, obviously, for me, it didn't pan out. I don't think, looking back, I was suited for the college game just because I liked to play more games, and playing just on Fridays and Saturdays there's just too much practice in between, and it just didn't. I kind of got better as things were more haphazard, and I wasn't kind of stuck playing on just Fridays and Saturdays at certain times where once you turn pro, you're playing at, 1 o'clock in the afternoon some days, and you're bussing, and the travel's all a mess. And that was almost better for me because I think in college I got too regimented, kind of sticking to a routine. And I don't think that helped me with my kind of mental preparation, where I think I was kind of burnt out before the game even started. So
fair enough. That doesn't help. Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the consistent themes, is that goaltending and hockey in general is as much physical as it is mental. So yeah, if you're not quite there, that definitely affects the game. But experiencing that though as well makes for a good experience when you turn pro, realizing that maybe the college time, it was a little more difficult for you, but then you can actually put in that extra focus when you turn to the pros. So, yeah. All right. So goalies are notoriously eccentric and superstitious individuals. Anyone would have to be in order to willingly stand in the way of 100-mile-an-hour at least shots. Did you have any pregame rituals? And also, it's a two-point question. What is the most unusual pregame ritual that you've ever witnessed from a fellow skater or goalie?
Yeah, I tried to stay away from as much as I could, just because so many things go different. And then if you get kind of outside of your rhythm, it can mess you up. So I tried not to do things, but I'll definitely say I'd stick with something if it was working. If I was driving a particular way to the rink and it was working, I'm probably going to keep going that way, or eating this for pregame meal, or going to this type of routine. But I tried not to be overly superstitious, because I mean, once you start relying on that stuff, a lot could go wrong for you. So
fair enough.
I never played with anybody that was that. You hear kind of stories about different guys doing this thing or that thing. Most of my goalie partners coming through were fairly level-headed, where they weren't the typical kind of odd goalie. So most of them were normal, and I think that's probably the majority.
Oh, it's interesting. I think this is the first episode where someone didn't mention Jamie McLennan. He was always the one brought up for being having odd pregame rituals there. So
yeah, I knew him a little bit because he was in Houston before I got there. So I think I met him, but I never played with him.
Okay. So, before your IIHF Worlds experience, your first experience with Team USA was actually when you won multiple gold medals in roller hockey in 96 and 97, I believe. How did the opportunity to do that come about, and how did roller hockey provide a unique challenge compared to ice hockey?
It basically started, it was when I was in college, we were just playing in the summer, and it was just a way to get on the ice. And, I had a couple buddies back home who were actually Division I guys, and we just kind of made this ragtag team. I mean, we were the Bad News Bears. None of our equipment matched or anything, but we were going to these tournaments, and all of a sudden we started winning them. And there's these different tryouts where they pick all-star teams from the tournaments, and just kind of got heading down that path. And before I knew it, I got selected for Team USA and went to a couple different world championships. And, we always had a really good team. So I think we won the gold every time except one time we took silver. So, but it was good because that's when I was in the lower level pro leagues.
Right.
But you'd get through the Olympic committee, you'd get medical coverage and stuff in the summer. So, financially it was kind of a good deal, and it was fun, and it kept you in shape. The movements are a little bit different, obviously, the different surface, but I think overall it was probably good for me, and it gave me, something to stay active and competitive during the summer.
Oh, interesting. How was it different than ice hockey, would you say? Easier or harder?
The goalies are playing different now to where the amount of they're sliding compared to the way they used to play. And I don't know if they're over sliding now a little bit, but that'd be a different topic. But you obviously can't do that. So your movements had to be crisper, and then your movement would have to be more up and down than sliding to save. Some of the pads and surfaces worked a little bit better, but okay. It was a little different. It was probably good for your reflexes because the puck was a little bit lighter. So I think guys could normally shoot it a little bit faster, and the game was pretty fast, and it kept you sharp. I didn't really go to a whole lot of, like, now guys train all summer long and they have really good goalie coaches who work with them. But there wasn't that much of it back when I was training in the summer. You're kind of on your own, and this is obviously before I signed my NHL contract. So, you're even more on your own. You're just trying to make ends meet. So
fair enough.
It was good. I enjoyed it. I have good memories of that.
Oh, I believe it. Representing your country in anything is amazing, and especially winning medals as well. Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
So once you finished with your college career, you turned pro. You spent your first season in 97-98 with the Louisville River Frogs in the ECHL. I actually had to Google those jerseys because I forgot what they looked like because we discussed it yesterday, and they're vibrant jerseys, that's for sure. The 98-99 season you spent with the BC Icemen in the UHL. In fact, during that season, you accomplished a very rare feat. On January 5th, 1999, you scored a goalie goal. Those are very rare in any league. Can you run us through the circumstances that led to the goal and what it felt like to accomplish something so rare in any league of hockey?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit because I don't think there's any video of it or anything. I had an audio recording for a while, but I'm pretty sure the way I remember it was, I think we were up 5-3. We were on the road in Winston-Salem, and it's just one of those typical, they dumped it maybe right down the middle. I was always fairly decent at handling the puck, and just things happened. I was right there. I was there and ended up getting a good shot on it. I ended up lifting it over everybody's head, but their last defenseman jumped up and it hit like the top of his glove. Oh. And that took off most of the momentum of the shot. So the puck wasn't even going very fast. Like, I wasn't even sure if it was going to make it over the line. We actually had one of our guys who was kind of chasing it down, and I don't know if he could have caught it and shot it in himself, but he just kind of skated behind it and followed it, and it was more of a curling shot than anything. It just barely made it over the line and kind of stopped. So
I was just going to mention, it's like the curling rock just going so slowly.
Yeah,
but still a goal at the end
same.
of the day. Yeah. And then you mentioned you still actually have the stick from that, eh?
Yeah, I end up keeping that stick. I have that right here.
Oh, awesome.
With me. One of the few things. I had never ended up keeping very many things. And I have a few things, but not too many. Not as big a collector as you are, I guess.
Fair enough, but I never got to play in the pros, so this is my way of vicariously living that dream. And then, of course, we will have a question later on in the show so you can show off some of the cool stuff that's behind you there. Got a few masks I can see.
Things, yeah.
All right. So, in the 1999-2000 season, you experienced time in the AHL, IHL, UHL, and NHL. In March of 2000, you defied all odds and accomplished something that no goalie, past or present, has ever or will ever achieve again. That is being the very first goalie to jump directly from the UHL to the NHL. Tampa signed you as a free agent on March 27th, and on March 28th, you were making your NHL debut. How did you find out that you were going to the NHL, and was it something so hard to believe?
I mean, it was hard to believe. When I first went to Binghamton, I was under contract with Rochester, so that would have been my second year pro, and I'd gotten called up by them I was up for maybe a month, and I was backing up Tom Draper at the time when Martin Buron got called up to Buffalo. So I was up there for a month, never got to play the whole month, and I think you just you're like, what's the point? You're thinking, why am I here? If, I'm almost better off just being down where I know I'm playing than to be up here and just sit the bench for a month. So that was my second year. So going into my third year, things kind of fell apart with me in Rochester, where, they pretty much cut me loose. And they kind of told me that I was never going to play in the American Hockey League. I had blown my chance. They pretty much said it wasn't going to happen. So I went back to Binghamton, and at this point I was just enjoying playing. Like I just wanted to play. I didn't want to, even if it was in the American Hockey League, I didn't want to just go up there and sit the bench. So I was actually saying no to teams that wanted to call me up. And my agent at the time, I'll give him a shout out, Mike Walken, because I think he did a lot of work for me. But just if teams wanted to call me up and I was going to play, I'd be there the next day. But I wasn't going to go and just sit the bench and waste my time. So eventually, I got a call from Orlando, which was my first call up in the IHL, and it was the same thing. I'll come if I'm going to play, but otherwise I'm not interested. And they basically said, "Well, we're hearing good things about you, but we've never seen you play. So if you come up here and skate, we'll take a look at you, and if we think we'll play you, we'll keep you. Otherwise, we'll return you back to Binghamton," because I would have missed like the All-Star game in the UHL. I didn't really care about that, but so I decided to go. Went down there, and lucky enough, that was the time when Atlanta, I think they went through 8 or 9 goalies. So when I got to Orlando, they had no goalies, so they had no choice but to play me. So I went there and won pregame skate, and then played in a game and ended up getting a shutout.
Oh wow!
And then played 4 games with them, went 4-0, then got sent back to Binghamton. And now more teams were interested. So another team called, Springfield called, and their goalie, Patrick DeRoche, who I ended up playing with up there, he had a wedding, I think. So they needed they would have had another goalie. So I don't know how I got called up, but they decided to call me up. I played both games there. I got another shutout, lost the second game, got sent back to Binghamton. Then Grand Rapids called me up, and it was the same thing, got a shutout with them. And Grand Rapids signed me for the rest of the year and sent me back to Binghamton. So now I'm back in Binghamton, but all of a sudden there's probably would have never been an NHL scout at any of our games. And then all of a sudden, I think there might have been 5 the one game when I got back there.
Mm-hmm.
And that game I ended up, it was just one of those nights. It was I think there were 72 shots and we won 3-2. And then Tampa signed me that night.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So I signed with Tampa, and then Tampa tells me, we're going to fly you down to Tampa, bring your gear because you might be able to skate. We just want you to meet the trainers, meet the guys, and just come there. It's basically supposed to be like a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get there, as soon as I land, get picked up with a limousine, go to the rink, and then go into the office, and they're like, hey, change of plan. We want you to play.
Oh, wow.
So I think 2 nights before I was playing in the UHL, and then I had one pregame skate and then played against defending Stanley Cup champions Dallas Stars. So wow. That's how it happened for me. I mean, it was a crazy roller coaster ride.
Yeah, so wild journey in such a short time span. It's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're asking me if the last thing in my mind at the beginning of that year was ever playing in the NHL. Mm-hmm. I was just trying to make an AHL team. It's obviously your dream, but it wasn't like, oh, my goal is to play in the NHL. Because I mean, that was incredibly far-fetched at the time. I mean, that's but that was the last of my worries, was trying to make it to the NHL, and it just everything kind of happened for me. And I mean, like you said, it'll be a record for a long time, and maybe never get broke, and nothing to do with me, but just like the way contracts are structured. It's just like, most contracts are 3-way contracts, and the likelihood that there's somebody in a 3rd-tier league that's basically gone completely unnoticed is even less likely now than it was back then. So it's an odd record to have, but
yeah, it's still something unique. Definitely sets it apart. And again, UHL doesn't exist anymore as a league, so of course no one will ever be able to do it now. It pretty much got absorbed into the CAHL, so that's kind of what I call it, the remnants of the UHL. So for anyone who doesn't know how the leagues work, that's of course the NHL, AHL, ECHL, then there's a CAHL. So that's kind of where the UHL was. So it adds to the impressiveness of how all those tiles sort of fit into place for you, and making it literally over the span of that one day there that you're playing in the UHL one day and right into the NHL.
I don't think anybody really argued that, it was a lower league than even the East Coast League. Mm-hmm. So that was just a crazy set of circumstances, and you never know what's going to happen, I guess.
That's still fantastic. It's one of my favorite stories always to hear, is the sort of the underdog proving, and then they get that chance. And then, yeah, definitely, as you mentioned, getting contracts signed, it's so tough for really strong prospects nowadays to make it. Pretty much the only way you see someone come out of nowhere, especially as an already established kind of pro player, is people doing well in the IIHF Worlds and then getting signed to an NHL entry level or 2-way contract out of that nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many guys now, and I've seen, college guys that I've worked with that are incredibly talented. And then, I was a couple months away from being completely buried in the United Hockey League, because at some point, if you're at a certain level for so long, then you're just like, you're that player. You're East Coast Hockey League goalie, and then later in my career, I was lucky enough where I was in the American Hockey League long enough where I was just like characterized, okay, he's a a steady American Hockey League goalie. And there's a lot of guys who are looking for a break, and it's just it's a weird deal. And you look back to the opportunities you had, and that the journey, I guess, not because I've talked, it's been weird the last couple of weeks since we talked about doing this, because I've talked with probably more people than I had in the past about different things. But I mean, I never, because the other thing was like, did you ever, when things weren't going my way, because I mean, if you look back, my first year in the East Coast Hockey League, I lost my first 9 games. So I went 0 for 9 to start pro hockey. And then I was able to kind of get my feet under me and win my next 7. And I think that year I was 7-9 or whatever. But the first 2 years never had a contract and just kind of showing up for tryouts and, you know, trying to make any team. I mean, I didn't even have an East Coast Hockey League contract my first, you know, that level offered to me in the summertime. Like I was going no contract my first 3 years and just trying to battle it out and get an opportunity. So, I mean, it's a tough journey for a lot of guys, and, you know, you need to be good at the right time and get a break. And, you know, the old adage, they say you only need one person to like you. And if that's the right person, you're in good shape. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was at the time, cause the expansion just started with the NHL with Minnesota and Columbus there, so there was 30 teams in the NHL, and there's really 2 spots on the NHL there, so everyone really wants to fight for that, like it's dog eat dog out there. People are always surprised by how few people have actually made it to the NHL as a goalie in history. People always assume it's thousands because the NHL has been around since the early 1900s. But as of the end of this season, only 828 goalies have ever made it to that rank. So that's how many thousands of people who are hungry, wanting that spot, who potentially could have been good enough, but just there's no space, no chance. So again, I can't stress that enough. It's just amazing how all those little pieces stacked together and then got you that opportunity, and not just for a game, but over 4 seasons. Like that's amazing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at time looking back, I mean, I think a lot of guys that you might talk to, it's probably going to take them maybe 10 years before they really want to talk about it. Because I mean, for a while there, you feel that, you know, should have done this, should have done that. And, you know, because most guys in my situation, I mean, we're not in the NHL because we don't have the choice. I mean, we didn't necessarily retire. There wasn't a press conference, just people stopped paying us money. So it's, you know, time looking back and kind of recognizing that, you know, I was able to accomplish something. And, you know, I think I probably accomplished more than anybody thought I would. And, you know, I think I kind of milked everything I could out of it, and can be kind of, you know, proud of what you're able to do, even though you know, you weren't able to, you know, totally establish yourself and, you know, make everything you've dreamed come true. You know, you were there, you gave yourself a chance. And I think the one thing for me is, you know, I was able to kind of do it with 3 different teams where I was able to keep myself relevant over a couple years and, you know, establish myself in the American Hockey League, and gave a good run at it. And it was a fun journey.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the fun, is experiencing all those different leagues, all those different teams. Like, it's not just one consistent thing. You never really know what to expect for the next day, and that's part of the fun of that ride there. When you were talking earlier about not wanting to sit on the bench and just kind of be there, it reminds me of another former NHL goalie. I think only ever got to 2 games. Neil Little, he holds the NHL record where he was on the NHL bench for Philadelphia, I believe, about 47 times before he actually got his first game in. So couldn't imagine that feeling. You're on the cusp of a debut and it doesn't happen.
It's hard. I mean, there's some guys who, I mean, I would have gladly sat on the bench for an NHL team. I would have done that. The American Hockey League wasn't really worth my time, but it's tough. I mean, the guys who are able to do it and who are good at it and can get thrown in there and put in a solid effort and give their team a chance to win. I mean, that's an incredible gift, because it's hard. Like, it's way easier to get in a groove, play a bunch of games, than to sit there and just wait and wait and wait.
Right.
And that was something that I definitely struggled with. And the guys who are doing it, I mean, they're a valuable asset to be able to do that. And there's guys who are really good at it.
Right. We actually do have a question that popped up on the side here, but I think it'll be better after my next question. It'll just perfectly link into it. So my next question, continuation obviously where we left off here. So one day you were a UHL goalie, the next you were dressing for your first NHL game. So prior to game time, how receptive were your Tampa Bay Lightning teammates to your presence? And did you have any particular interactions with any of them that stood out to you?
I mean, they were all great. Like, I mean, for how messed up a situation it was, and they probably weren't having the greatest year, and it was really like to be in. Like, there had to be a meeting at some point where somebody thought that this made sense, and that would have been an interesting meeting. But it was good. The guys were great. The organization was great. I got nothing but great things to say about them. I can't specifically remember anybody. I think the one guy in the room who was maybe more intimidating than anybody else was Peter Svoboda.
Right.
I mean, he had been there for so long. I knew him from years prior. I mean, he was a legit NHL defenseman. He was great. I think that might have been his last year he played. But all the guys were great. It happened so fast that you didn't have a whole lot of time to even really think about it. And I felt halfway pretty good. Like, I wasn't too crazy nervous, and it was just an amazing. I mean, anybody who's been to an NHL game, I think just the most electric part of the game is right before the game. You come out and the lights are down, and the music's pumping, and just the energy in the building's amazing. And I think I saw something on Facebook right when the Lightning just won the cup, when they had the thing with the anthem when they're passing the flag around.
Right.
I mean, that's incredible stuff like that. So, I mean, that's the one part of the hockey that I miss the most, is probably that moment. Like stepping on the ice before a game, the lights are low, the music gets pumping, just that energy. So
gives you goosebumps.
Goosebumps for sure.
Yeah.
So I think that's why guys play. That's for sure.
All right. So our first question we're going to bring up here is from Tyler Sharp. He asks, being a Tampa fan, I'm curious as to what guys on the team you really got to know and befriend. And did you ever get any good advice from other goalies like Darren Pupa, Dan Kluche, or Kevin Weeks?
So Pupa wasn't around when I was there.
Okay.
I got Dan Kluche was a great guy, and actually got to know his brother Sylvain later in Houston. So Dan was great. I mean, I was next to him in the room. He was there. Weeks came in the year later, and he was a great guy too. Like, I've never had a bad experience with like another goalie. So, I'm sure it happens out there, but all those guys were great. And, the game was really evolving kind of when I came in, where it was starting to really change when you look at the way the styles are now compared to where they were. And I remember Kevin was he was on the kind of the front edge of a lot of that, the footwork type stuff that you're seeing now with the slides and the different ways it's playing. I think he must have been getting a lot of that from somebody, and I think he trained a lot in the Toronto area. But he was kind of bringing some of that stuff back to us.
Okay.
And then Hobby Boolin was bringing stuff back. So it was just kind of like a melting pot of information. And probably like halfway through my career, like, I totally changed how I was playing, and everybody else was kind of changing, where, guys have been playing goalie for 15 years, getting up on the wrong leg, and nobody even knew it. So
right.
It was an interesting time to be a goalie, and got to work with some great goalie coaches. In Tampa, it was Jeff Reese, and then I actually got to work with Francois Allaire when I was in Portland.
Wow. He's Patrick Waz, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, he's the godfather of
the butterfly
French goaltending and the butterfly, and just to work with those guys was just an amazing experience.
Oh, we have a former NHL goalie joining us, and he agrees with what you said. He said, "I hear you." Mr. Adam Monroe right there popped in for a little visit.
Yeah. If you can have him on next.
Maybe. I'll have to talk with him on that. Oh, perfect. Let's see. Okay, that's it for the questions for now. All right, so March 28th, 2000, you were given the start against the Dallas Stars, as you mentioned, who were the defending Stanley Cup champs. Of course, they had Ed Belfour in net as well. You saw some ups and downs throughout the course of that game against a truly stacked team. Run us through the experience from your first NHL game, and other than your own teammates, did any of the Dallas guys like Mike Modano give you any encouragement?
I mean, it was crazy because, like, I remember back to where I started playing junior A hockey. I was playing in Sioux City, Iowa, and I started to kind of collect some hockey cards. Mm-hmm. So Ed Belfour was my favorite goalie.
Oh, wow.
So I had, his cards up on the wall and everything. And then for the first start, just to be, stretching out near the red line, and there he is. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. And then obviously the game definitely had its ups and its downs. And I think, we talked about this the other day. So I was in there for 3, and then I got pulled, I think. Mm-hmm. I think it was the first period even.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. So then Dan Cloutier went back in. And so, I'm thinking, this is great. My nightmare's kind of over. And then Dan Cloutier goes in there, and then he gets hurt. And now I got to go back in. And now you're like, geez, I better get my stuff together now. So I went back in, gave up one more, but kind of settled down. Felt actually halfway decent by the end of the game. Finally was starting to make some saves and feeling a bit better. So it was definitely, I mean, you're kind of way down, and then next thing you know, you're back in there, and you're kind of able to find yourself a bit and kind of work through it and on somewhat of a decent note. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, definitely coming back after that, I mean, that's tough in your debut. Your first 6 shots, let in 3 goals, you get pulled, and I can't imagine what that feels like. I mean, everyone experiences things differently, and then Cloutier goes in, gets hurt, and then you go back in, and potential is obviously there to get a lot worse.
Nothing game going through your mind.
Oh yeah, but sort of the nerves, I guess, kind of got settled down, and then you went.
I mean, they better get settled down because there's nobody there to save you. So I mean, it can turn into a nightmare pretty quick. So that it kind of came together and made some stops and was able to move on.
Did any of the Dallas guys give you any comments or grief at all in the game?
I don't think they saw it. They were probably as shocked as me to be there. So I mean, they're the last thing on their mind was to go kick this kid when he's down. So nobody said anything. I don't recall anything. Everybody was, from Tampa to Dallas, everybody's professional, and I had nothing happen.
It's good to hear. You always hear about the really old days of hockey, and it was really rough and tumble, and no one was very nice to each other. But that was
a
different day and age then. Yeah. So since we already mentioned Dan Cloutier, Kevin Weeks, we talked about a lot of your former teammates, but I'm curious, who was your favorite goaltending partner throughout your entire hockey career, and why? If you had to pick one. I know that's tough to answer, but
I'd probably say Wade Dubielewicz in Bridgeport. I mean, we won the award for the lowest goals against.
The Holmes.
We pretty much split, and it was a good split. Like if you're splitting time with another goalie, it could be good or it could be terrible. And in this situation, we pushed each other. It was good. I enjoyed kind of talking the position with him. We'd kind of bounce stuff off of each other, and it was a good relationship. And we were obviously both able to be really successful. And, it's
yeah.
probably one of the goalie partners I was probably, closest to as like a tandem, two guys really getting the job done, because then it doesn't always work out like that. And it could be, it's obviously a competitive situation. I think it's always easier when both of you are doing really good. So,
so
that makes sense.
That season,
both of you are killing it. Yeah, I think we won. Anytime you're winning, pro hockey is the greatest thing in the world when you're winning. It could be a nightmare when you're not winning. So, I think we won 21 games in a row there, and we were on a good run. And it was a fun year. When you're winning, it's the locker room's fun, the practices are fun, everything about it's fun. So.
And of course, Wade Dubielewicz lives on in the nightmares of Toronto Maple Leafs fans. He's always remembered as Pokecheck because he killed their playoff dreams that one year there when he made.
Yeah, he had an awesome run in the playoffs. I was watching those games for sure. That was awesome.
Oh man, okie dokie. So again, we're on the theme of goalies. We're gonna keep riding that one. In your 21 career games, you got to play against some truly legendary goalies and, of course, players alike. Among goalies, you got to face Ed Belfour, Curtis Joseph, Mike Richter, John Van Beesbrook, Mike Vernon, Tom Barrasso, Olaf Kolzig, and Arturs Urbe. Did you ever feel starstruck around some of these athletes, and did you have any notable interactions with any of them? Or did you just simply focus on the game and not get a chance to think about it?
A lot. I'm actually surprised by some of those names. Some of those games I don't necessarily remember that well. But, I remember seeing these guys. It's an unbelievable experience. Just, guys you've looked up to and you've watched on TV, being able to go out there and be on the same ice is obviously, a tremendous experience. I think of those names, I think Curtis Joseph would be one name I remember, because I remember playing in Toronto. I got to play in some great venues. Like I played in Toronto, I played in Montreal, in Carolina, and then I think the best game of my career was in Colorado, which is, I think we had talked about how those games are archived. So if anybody has the game, in Colorado, I think is my second year. That's the one game from my career that I'd actually like to watch. It's the best I felt. I think it ended up being a 2-2 tie. And, that was kind of the one point in my career where I kind of felt comfortable. And I even remember the next day at practice was one of the few, I was stopping everything. It was the best I ever felt. And we were in Arizona, and I was thinking I might be getting the start. Kevin Weeks had been hurt, but then he comes back, and then I get sent down. So that was, that's how it goes when you're kind of bouncing up and down. So
that's what they say is, once you're kind of on that roll and you get into that groove, all the pucks just seem to magnetize to you. Like you can stop everything. So you're on top of the world when that happens.
Yeah, definitely. That's always the challenge, especially when you get called up, is finding that comfort level, and it can be tough to find. And if it happens here or there, you're kind of heading in the right track, and if you're kind of struggling to find it, then you can end up in some odd situations. So
true enough. Oh yeah. I know a lot of times you were kind of given tough situation to go into, where a lot of your games it was kind of you're thrown in a relief effort, so it's you don't get to start.
I think I only had one legitimate relief effort, because at the time, I'm pretty sure his first name, Steve Ludzig, was the coach, and he didn't want to call a timeout at the end of the game. He loved to switch goalies to take the time for a timeout. So I think I probably had 8 games where, these are 1-goal games, and he's switching goalies at the end of the game. I think one of the games I ended up getting a breakaway on me, and lucky enough I made the save. But so if you look at some of those games, those relief games, those are just 15 seconds, 20 seconds, where he did this goalie change. But the goofy thing was, in my contract, I had a games played bonus. And I would have never hit my games played Bosens without those 15 seconds here, 20 seconds there. So
Nice.
I mean, those made me a lot of money. So
Hey,
I
nothing to
can't complain.
about.
And fortunately enough, I never got in those situations. I never got scored on where you get thrown in there for 15, 20 seconds, and you're basically put in the net so you can waste enough time so he can diagram a play, and then as soon as your team gets going down the other ice, you're coming off the ice. And you're hoping that happens fairly quickly because you're not warm, you're not stretched out, and it's not the greatest situation to be in. So yeah, for some unique. So you had to be ready right to the end, because normally as a goalie you can tell when you might be going in, like, okay, this is starting to go south. I better start thinking about what the heck I'm doing here. But these are 1-goal games where, the getting back into it's on the line, and you better be ready because you don't know what the heck's going to happen.
Wow. Yeah. Again, I've sort of followed your game-by-game stats there, and a lot of them show, like replaced Zach Burke, replaced Kevin Weeks, and then they didn't seem like bad games. Yeah. So, okay, that definitely makes more sense in that context. That's interesting strategy, though. What can I say?
Yeah, risky one, but interesting.
All right, so next question. A lot of former goalies say that the NHL was their favorite time because they said with the players being so elite, shots were actually easier to stop because they were more predictable with their trajectories. A lot also say that post-retirement house leagues were actually the toughest because of players and their shots being so unpredictable and erratic. You've played in 6 different professional leagues throughout your career. Which one would you say was the toughest to stop pucks in, and why? And this is a 2-part question. Next one is, were there any players who had your number, like you just couldn't stop anything they shot at you?
All right, so 2-part answer, I guess,
okay.
to your 2-part question.
All right.
Yeah, the off-speed stuff is tough. Like when you retire from a certain level and you go play men's league, it's tough because it's all knuckleballs. So the part where it gets easier going from, the UHL to the AHL to the NHL is the defensemen are better and the game's way more in control. So it's a more controlled situation with better defensemen, but you're dealing with better shooters. So
right.
And some of the shooters can hit the smallest of holes and are unlike anything else you've seen. So I think that the couple shooters that I remember Joe Sakic put one through my legs before I even thought about going down. Like his release was like nothing I'd ever seen ever. So after that, I was ready for it, and that was the only goal he got after me. Just like I had to know that, like this puck could come off his stick, and I'm not even going to realize it till it's halfway to me. So after that, I was more prepared for it. But for anybody who says anything about his release, it's unlike anything I'd seen from anybody. So the other guys that gave me kind of fits were like some of the tough guys. Like most of them had heavier shots. Their releases weren't as true as some of the other guys. So they could shoot a hard puck, and then you weren't going to get as good a read on it. So, I mean, I think Ty Domi, I think he scored 2 on me.
Okay.
And that was nuts because it was in Toronto. So Ty Domi gets his first goal, and everybody in Toronto loves Ty Domi. So he gets his first goal, and then he gets a second one. And I'm getting a bad read on him. Like his release is different. He's got a heavy shot. And so now it's getting bad to worse because he's in Toronto and everybody's just passing to Ty Domi so that he can shoot and try to get a hat trick. So it was like it went from bad to worse to a complete nightmare because every time he was on the ice, everybody's just giving him the puck, and I had to try to. And I don't think he got it. I think I would remember, but I know for sure he got 2. I don't think he got 3. But so he gave me troubles, and then I think the other tough guy, I think Donald Brashear on me in Philly. Yeah, I got to play at the Spectrum too, so that was pretty cool.
Number 87 before Sidney Crosby.
another heavy shot that kind of different release. And those guys love to score too. So,
oh, of course. Yeah, a lot of those guys didn't get many points. I mean, Domi had actually quite good points and a lot of penalty minutes.
Yeah,
but yeah,
he should send me a signed stick because I'm sure he remembers those too. Because
with an apology note on it, sorry for scoring so much.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. We have someone who's interested in some KHL stories. We'll work our way there a little bit later on, and then someone excited to see some of those goalie masks on the back, and we'll get to that a little bit later on as well. All right, so in 2000-2001 season, you got to spend a lot more time with the Lightning, appearing in 10 games, but you were regularly dressing from the beginning of the season until February. For all intents and purposes, you had made it as a full-time NHL backup goaltender. At that point, you proved to everyone who said that it couldn't be done and you wouldn't be able to make it to the NHL that, in fact, it can be done, and it lasted as long as it did. Was that desire to defy the odds a huge push for you? And did you ever notice other pro hockey players fighting similar battles that they told you about or you could read?
I think everybody has their battles. And is that the year you're talking about? Is that my last year in Tampa Bay?
It's the second year there.
So I still had one more after that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you're just trying to stick around as long as you can, because it can end at any moment. I mean, you could go out of favor and get sent down to the East Coast League, and you'd be back in the same situation you were at. So I mean, every year for me, and we'll probably only get into probably like half of the stuff that happened, but every year was a battle. Like that year, I went into Springfield, and Tampa Bay had just started to share an affiliation with Springfield. And I was basically told going into Springfield that, okay, well, we'll take you, but you're not going to play. Mm-hmm. And so then they were talking with Tampa was thinking about even sending me down to that was when I was in Detroit. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk about the year in Springfield. So basically told that I probably wasn't going to play and that they're going to send me down to the coast because Springfield had a goalie, and he was a first rounder with Phoenix, and they wanted him to play, and just was able to go there and kind of gut it out. And by the end of the year, I was probably logging most of the minutes. So I mean, you never know where it's going to go. I mean, they can love you one minute and hate you the next, and I mean, you just have to keep doing your job and winning when you can win, and
right.
And just, I mean, trying to get better, keep getting better. I mean, I think that's why you're looking at goalies they mature at a little different rate than forwards, where as they get older and start to learn the position and kind of learn what it takes to mentally win hockey games. I think,
right.
That's the big thing that separates, the really good goalies from, the average goalies or the guys who never make it.
Oh, absolutely. Can't remember where I read it or heard that, but they say usually the goalies sort of hit their prime at the age of 28. Like that's kind of when they're at their very best. If they're in the NHL, that's when they understand it and get those angles and everything right.
I think it's just a mental grind. I mean, it's a position unlike any other, and I think everybody sorts it out differently. There's some guys that are really loose, and there's some guys who have to be more focused, but everybody kind of sorts it out in their own way, how they can, be consistent and be focused for 60 minutes. And that's the huge challenge. Because I mean, if your mind wanders for a split second, next thing you know, you're picking a puck out of the net. So
right.
And that's the big difference, I think.
Yeah, and definitely a lot of guys have had to evolve throughout the course of their career. Always the big one that pops in my mind is Marc-Andre Fleury. Like if you watch any of his games or highlights from his rookie year when he was 18 in 2003, 2004 versus him today, like you wouldn't think it's the same goalie. Like 03, 04, super acrobatic, and it's just sort of that athleticism. If he tried playing like that now, he'd be injured all the time. But plays a smarter game now. Again, the maturity is the big part of that there. And I
mean, that was the big change kind of halfway through my career where guys were way more aggressive, and it was kind of a weird thing because all of a sudden they wanted you to be a little bit deeper and kind of, it almost felt like you're doing less, but you're way more in control. You're, not giving up armpits and 5 holes and stuff like that. So, I mean, the coaching has gotten pretty amazing in, the last 10 years or so. But, I mean, that's kind of weird, too, because everybody's kind of playing like, with the way the position is being taught now, with a guy like Dominic Hasek, who is arguably the best goalie to play. I mean, he's up there. I mean, Patrick Waugh's obviously up there and a bunch of other guys. But, I mean, Hasek, his stories are legendary going through an NHL practice and not giving up a goal in practice.
Wow.
That was the standard. As soon as his save percentages started to shoot up, I think everybody took notice and said, if I want to get paid, I got to start stopping a couple more here. So, I mean, that kind of started, it was the save percentage arms race.
Yeah.
I mean, they went from 90s to 92s in the course of a couple of years.
That's right.
And, I mean, they're making the equipment smaller and talking about making the nets bigger, but who knows?
I believe, think save percentages, peaked in like 1998, 99, because they really, I can't remember what exact rules they brought in, but it was that season when lots of goalies were getting 92s, 93s across all the teams. I mean, Urbe was one of them. Ron Tugnut with Ottawa was another one. It was just lots of guys got crazy numbers at those in that one particular year. And then, of course, Hasek. I mean, that's always his thing. What did I always say? The most stylish goalie with absolutely no goaltending style whatsoever, but it doesn't really matter. He got the job done.
Yeah. I mean, because if you watch him, like, he's always square. So his positioning is really good for how much people thought he did this or he did that. I mean, his body was under control more than a lot of guys. So, I mean, I saw him when I was early in my career. He was in Buffalo, and I got to see him, and his style is obviously completely different. But I mean, you have to respect what he did. And if I had to relate to a style, it'd probably be, Patrick Waugh. I liked him growing up, and then, kind of that French butterfly style was something that I kind of gravitated towards. And it seemed like you'd learn through osmosis more than anything, where if you're paired with this goalie or watch this goalie, you'd pick up a thing from him, and kind of try to do it your own way. And I mean, that's how guys were learning back then, because the NHL teams might have had goalie coaches, but we'd only, like in the minors, we'd only see them for, they might come down for a week or so. So we were pretty much on our own to figure things out. And, everybody's just kind of pushing each other, because everybody wants to be the best in whatever league you're at. So if some guys setting these numbers, it's like, well, if I want to be in that ballpark, I got to figure out how to get to that level. And stats are goofy, because I mean, it's probably the worst thing in the world for young goalies to concern themselves about. But once you're a pro, it kind of rules your world.
Oh, fair enough. But you see a huge transition usually. I mean, guys in juniors, good junior goalies, it's like, 3-point something goals against average, 87 or 88% save average. And, people say, how did he make the NHL? But then when they're in the NHL, they're getting just over 2 goals against average and 91 something save percentage. So it's different from junior to the NHL. I'm assuming there.
Yeah, everything's different.
Different focus.
It's a fairly consistent stat. But I mean, certain goalies just, for whatever reason, flourish under a certain system or with a certain coach, or even a certain city or whatever. But it's an odd position.
True enough. But let's go to 2002. So in 2002, you got to represent the United States of America at the IIHF World Championships. So it was a mostly two goalie system, but there was a third as well involved. So it was you, a pre-NHL Ryan Miller. He was still playing with Michigan State and NCAA at the time. And Greg Nemenko was the third guy manning the nets. USA ultimately earned 7th place in the tournament. How is it different playing for your country as opposed to a pro club? And did you ever foresee that Ryan Miller would one day become a Vezina winning goalie who only just retired at the end of this season?
I think anytime you can play for your country, I mean, that's incredible. And, you know, having pride for your country, pride for your flag, the jersey, everything, I think that's incredibly important. So anytime you're able to do that, it's a tremendous honor. The tournament for me went, you know, that was after my contract with Tampa Bay was up. So I was kind of in, you know, that weird zone where you're kind of thinking about, you know, you need that next contract. So, you know, that was an important tournament for me to play well. And I went there and we ended up losing the game. One of the games I played, we lost to Canada, but it was a really good game. It ended up being like 2-1, played really well. So, you know, that helped my situation. And then, you know, Ryan Miller, he played for Michigan State that year and then came out of college. And you could tell right away that he was there was something special about him. I mean, just, you know, I could see it with his work ethic on the ice. And the funny thing about him is my younger brother played on the same junior team as him in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan.
Okay.
So kind of knew him a little bit before that just because he knew my brother. And then, you know, I mean, he's a young kid then. And, you know, he's kind of looking at me like I'm the guy who might maybe know a little bit of what he's doing. And, you know, he's obviously head and shoulders above me within a very short period of time. So it was a great experience. He's a great guy. And, you know, congratulations to him on an incredible career.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really nothing to be said about Ryan Miller. I mean, yeah, he's debuted 02-03 and then was consistent face of the Sabres for forever, and he had really good stats everywhere he was. It was a fantastic career, and it always makes me sad when a lot of the guys you kind of follow just start retiring, and then the new guys start coming in. And
yeah, we all get old.
It's right in the feels. All right, so. Obviously, because the Tampa Bay contract ended in 2002, the next season you were acquired by the Minnesota Wild, and in January you were on recall for pretty much the entire month with the main squad. With Manny Fernandez injured and Dwayne Roloson unable to play due to personal reasons, you were given your final NHL start on January 29th, 2003 against my hometown Edmonton Oilers. How did your experience with Minnesota differ from your time in Tampa Bay?
I had a 1-year contract with them, and you know, it's all kind of the same. I mean, in Houston, we had a really good team in Houston, so that was a fun year. And then I got called up by the Wild and backed up Dwayne Roloson for that was like a month. And he's another great guy, like Dwayne Roloson. I learned a lot from him, and he always, you know, was open to, you know, showing me this, that, or anything else. So he was a great guy, and it was kind of a goofy start because, you know, it was another one of those situations where you're sitting on the bench for a month, and then you get thrown in there, and you know, I was in Edmonton, and I didn't feel terrible, but I didn't feel that great, and then. The weird thing with that one was, I think it was a week or 2 weeks. So I played the game, and then I got sent down, and then probably like a week or 2 weeks later, I couldn't walk. I had Lyme's disease, where my knee completely swelled up, and I was on crutches, and I was basically hospitalized for like a month, where I had to take IV antibiotics, and I lost I was probably 150 pounds, lost like 20, 30 pounds in like a couple of weeks. So It was it totally wiped me out. And I kind of felt it during the year where I never really felt like I was getting in shape.
Right.
And then it just kind of totally wiped me out. And then, so again, I mean, you're at that point, you're like, holy cow, I got this 1-year contract. I got to try to get back, because if I don't get back, then, I probably have no chance of signing another deal.
For sure.
So I ended up, kind of running its course with my treatment and stuff like that. And my knee was still kind of messed up from all the swelling in it. And we were just going into playoffs. And I remember, like, I have to be in the lineup, before the end of this season, some way or another, so I can at least say I made it back. So we were in the first round of playoffs, and I finally got cleared to play. Like, and I probably was nowhere near being ready to play. Just, it was one of those, okay, I'm fine, I'll back up or whatever. And it was that same situation. So you're probably not ready. Knee won't really bend very well, and I get thrown in. Johan Holmquist was the goalie, and he got pulled, and it was the first round of playoffs, and I get thrown in there, and I can't really even bend my knee. I had to do it. I was basically doing the Eddie Belfour one leg, one knee down,
right,
kind of shuffling around the crease.
Nice.
I was fortunate enough, I was able to make, I think I had 12 shots or something like that, but I was able to get through that game. That was the only game I had to play in playoffs. I backed up pretty much the whole playoffs. We ended up winning the Calder Cup.
Right.
Fortunate enough for me, I was able to get back on the ice to where it looked like I could be a functioning goalie still, and I was able to sign another contract going into the next year with the Islanders. So, I mean, there's just weird stuff, ups and downs. I mean, guys, you talk to anybody, guys are getting hurt so much more than probably anybody realizes, and some of the injuries guys play with, and it's self-preservation for a lot of guys, especially when you're trying to get that next contract. I mean, everybody's got bills to pay, families, and I mean, you can't afford for everybody in the league to think that you're not healthy or can't get back. So,
plus, as we talked about earlier too, there's also lots of hungry younger goalies who want to take those
positions. There's a lot of guys who want your spot. So you gotta gut through it and figure out a way.
Oh yeah, I mean, this goalie always pops up every episode of the show. We always talk about, but Jamie McLennan, good example. Like, he had a broken sternum or cracked up sternum, and he was playing through that and in his book he was saying, he didn't want to lose his NHL spot, so he just fought through that kind of a potentially life-ending injury. But goalies are a different breed. That's all to be said.
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about the dream of winning the Stanley Cup as seemingly overshadowing the significance of any other hockey achievement. In 2003, while in the AHL, you and the Houston Aeros, as you mentioned, were the Calder Cup champions. Can you tell us what it felt like to be a part of a major pro championship team, and what you felt in those final few seconds as you knew your team had the victory?
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome. I mean, every guy on that team, great guy. It was an awesome experience. Super happy to win. But it's all, as a goal, I mean, it's different. If you're on the bench, it's a different dynamic than if you're the guy in the net. So, I mean, as a personal achievement, I mean, that Calder Cup, I mean, I was on the team. It was awesome. It's not something that I'm particularly tied to, as an accomplishment, but it was a great experience. I knew my job of the backup was to be ready to go. If it got to game 7, overtime, and I hadn't played the whole playoffs, I got to be ready for that moment. If I get thrown in there, I'm going to get the job done, and we're going to win this thing. So that's about the only thing you can do in those situations is keep yourself, focused on the task. You're supportive of your teammates. There's no animosity or anything like that. It's just, that's the way it is. It's not, I'm not the guy right now. I got to do my job. So it was awesome winning. I mean, definitely a great experience, but it's a totally different dynamic than if it would have been like a champion. Like, I'm way more connected to, like, I won a championship in Kelowna when we won the Centennial Cup. Like, I'm way more connected to that accomplishment than the Calder Cup, if that makes any sense.
Oh, no.
Because I think this came up because I had my Calder Cup ring, and I'm kind of thinking I might even just sell the thing because I don't wear it. And, if there's a collector out there who wanted it, and I threw it out there, and, different people are saying different things. I go, I feel so bad for them. I mean, I could care less about it. It means nothing to me. Like, it was an awesome experience, great memories, love the guys, but the ring means nothing to me. So
some of my favorite comments, I remember I saw it when you posted it up there, and then people are like, why doesn't he have it? And then it's like, he does have it.
It's literally been in a drawer for 10 years, and I've never worn it. So, yeah. I mean, that's how it is. I mean, athletes, pro hockey players, the Stanley Cup is an incredible trophy. Everybody wants to win it. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to those, like, they're just crazy competitive. You could put a ridiculous game in a parking lot and have those two teams, and they'd have the same intensity. It's just a bunch of grown men who don't want to lose at anything they do. So, I mean, the trophies are great, the rings are cool, but I mean, they just want to win.
Oh yeah. Plus, it really is like such a split among former players as to the connection to the little items associated with it. I mean, some guys, it's the memories that are important and the stuff they've lived, but they couldn't care less about the jerseys or the masks or the rings or whatever. It's just
that's just stuff.
And then there's other guys with to name drop there, Mike McKenna is a huge one who collects all of his own stuff. Like,
I mean, I wish you could have got a lot of cool stuff, and I think if I could talk to my younger self. Mm-hmm. I mean, some of that stuff would have been pretty cool. I'm not really a collector, but I think some guys are just I don't know what it is. I mean, I always felt awkward, asking, it would have been cool to get some of that memorabilia. Mm-hmm. But I guess you talk about superstitions. I guess I was too paranoid about jinxing myself, and having it all end. Then, I just kind of tried to fly under the radar, and maybe no one will even notice I'm here, and I'll be here for 10 years. So it's just, it's a different dynamic.
All right. So we're going to move forward another year in time. We're going to go to 2003, 2004. So that year, the New York Islanders ended up signing you, and you formed a deadly tandem with Wade Dubielewicz with Bridgeport in the AHL. As we mentioned earlier, you even won the Harry Hap Holmes Memorial Award that you shared with him. You recorded some of your career's best numbers and even got another recall to the NHL for 3 games with the Isles. What was it about Bridgeport that brought out the very best of your goaltending? Because that year, your numbers were insane compared to any year prior and any year after. Not to say bad things about former records, but that one was a real shining spot.
I think it was, me and Wade had good chemistry. We pushed each other. Our coach, Greg Cronin, had a good system for, defensive responsibility. I mean, if you open up the offense too much, it's going to affect the goalie. So it was a good balance where, we were scoring goals, and we had some guys who could score goals, and especially on the power play, where you could depend on your power play to get points. And, it was just kind of got on a roll, and things were going good. And, we were pushing each other, and just things kind of came together. I mean, it was kind of a crazy year, because that year, the Islanders goalie coach was Billy Smith.
Oh, wow. Battling Billy.
Yeah. So old school mentality. Unbelievable guy. To be with him on the ice, I remember. We were setting up drills, so we have drills with AHL guys. They could shoot the puck. So Billy Smith wants to demonstrate the drills, so he's demonstrating drills with only gloves and a stick and having guys rifle pucks at him. And it was the craziest thing. You thought he was going to get plugged in the shoulder or something, but he was out there getting it done, and I thought he was great. I mean, he had kind of an older school mentality, and if you kind of took what he said and kind of like put it through a filter and interpreted it, it made perfect sense. If you took it at face value, it's like, what, this is crazy talk, but
Right.
I liked him. He was a great guy. And then that was our best year. And you talk about like goaltending coaches and this, that. I mean, sometimes it's just, the relationship or how somebody, makes you feel on the ice, or how they're able to get the best out of you. And it's not necessarily, this technique or that technique that gets the job done. So, I mean, that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we got knocked out in the first round of playoffs. And that was Marc-Andre Fleury's. I think that was his first. He got called up or assigned there in playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
he didn't do good his first couple games. And then they went to, I think we had him down like 3-0, and then they put a different goalie in there, and then it was just a slow crawl to getting eliminated. So it was kind of tough. Yeah, Game 7. It's always, those are the ones that sting. I mean, those are the ones you remember, I guess.
True enough. Remember both sides of that equation. They're the good and bad, but it all paints the complete picture at the end of the day. And Adam Monroe actually wrote that, the Sound Tigers had like a combined 1.1 goals against average that year. So really good.
Really, it was fun. That's when it's fun. I mean, if you could have years like that, you'd play for 20 years. But
no kidding.
They don't all go like that.
All right. So actually that was Adam Monroe, who's curious about KHL stories. I had a question noted for it, but for time's sake, I actually did cut it, but we're actually still doing decent with time, so I'll ask it to the best of my recollection of what I had written down. So 05-06 there, you had a short stint in what would become the KHL. It was just the Russian professional league at the time. You were in an interesting position there because you were the only North American player on your team, and you were one of only 6 or 7 players on the team who ever got any NHL experience in there. What was it like being in Russia after so long in North America with a lot of guys who?
I mean, it's a different world. I mean, you turn your clocks back 20 years and gives you an idea what you're dealing with. I mean, most guys if people are wondering why guys go over there, basically, as an AHL goalie, I can make the same amount of money as I would in the NHL if I go to Russia.
Oh, wow.
But Russia is completely corrupt, and you can't trust anything that happens. So I went to Western Siberia.
Jeez.
And I was the only English-speaking guy on the team. There's a couple Czech guys who spoke broken English. And it was going pretty good. My family ended up coming over there, and in Novosibirsk is the 3rd biggest city in Russia. So it was nice. I mean, Russia, there's beautiful parts of Russia.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, I generally enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I had an eye infection. Here we go with injuries again. But I had an eye infection that would pop up every so often. It could usually get treated by like a steroid drop. Mm-hmm. But it affects my depth perception and vision. So I could kind of feel it creeping in, and I started trying to. And the pharmacies and stuff are different, where you don't get prescriptions over there. You can buy everything on the corner, but it's not as strong as the stuff you can get over here. So it wasn't working. And so my play was kind of going downward as my vision got worse and worse. I think the last game I played was in Magnitogorsk. And I think Ovechkin was on the other team.
Oh, no.
You can't even read your own name, let alone somebody else's name.
The Cyrillic alphabet, that's right.
I think he was on the other team. And at the end of that game, my vision was to the point where I had to go to a Russian hospital, and I was in a Russian hospital for a week, and it was like the cataract ward. So I was in this room with these, it looked like a dorm room, and every morning, like, these old people just like shuffle by in slippers, like one flew out of a cuckoo's nest. And my roommate was Russian,
Right.
and he would talk to me all day long as if I understood him.
So you just nodded.
And I'd look at him and I'd be like, I have no idea what you're saying. And he'd talk. And I find, so I'd get shots in my eyeballs every morning. And after about a week of that, it got a little bit better. The team stopped paying me because they said that I had cataracts and I had showed up with eye problems and whatever else. So, I mean, I wasn't getting paid. I knew I had to get back to North America to figure my eye problem out. So we ended up leaving, and then we actually sued the team for the remainder of the contract and won in a Russian court. No, not nice.
Well, nice that you won, not nice
Yeah,
you had to
no, but the team, they changed ownership so much.
Right.
If you sue one person, the team is owned by somebody else by the time it gets to that point. So I didn't get paid, came back to North America, was never so happy as to be in New York City, ready to kiss the cement, and ended up hooking up with Portland, who we had a great team. I mean, we had Getzlaff, Perry, Penner. I mean, that was their guys' first year. They were called up for quite a bit, but they came down for the playoffs. So we made a run there, and unfortunately, again, I broke my ankle, so I was out for playoffs. So yeah, that's my Russian story. I mean, Russia's great if it works because it's a lot of money, but if they don't want to pay you, they're not going to pay you. So,
true enough, yeah. That's a consistent story too. I've spoken with a few former players, and not getting paid and shady cash deals are kind of a part of that game. But
yeah, they tried to pay, like, they're supposed to wire the money, and the first time they paid me, they paid me in cash, and they just like dropped this duffel bag full of cash, and I'm thinking I'm going to get robbed as soon as I leave, because we don't have a car or anything, and there's like no taxi system over there. You just flag down a random car. Yeah, whoever you wave at, they just pull over, and then you negotiate a price. And so I'm thinking, okay, the team called this guy. I'm going to wave. He's going to pull up, and then I'm going to end up in the business district, and I'm going to lose all my money. So it's like,
that's
no,
awesome.
you wire the money. I'm not taking cash. So yeah, that was the Russian experience. It was good while it lasted.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm going to hold on to that story forever. That's great.
Yeah. All
right. So 2007, you made the decision to retire from play. What motivated that decision? I'm guessing there's a good story then about that.
I got more injury stories.
Okay.
So,
well, yeah.
And you normally, so right now, I'm a state trooper, Michigan State Police.
Okay.
So when I was my last year in Houston, I was in the recruiting process to get into the Michigan State Police. So we were playing in Grand Rapids, and then I was supposed to take a physical agility test the following day with the state police in Lansing. So we're going to play in Grand Rapids. The next day I'm supposed to go to Lansing. Okay. So the morning of the Grand Rapids game, I tear my wrist on my glove hand, where, if my hand rotates like this, it goes over the bone, and it feels like someone's taking a knife to your wrist. So I do that in the morning, and they're not going to be able to get another goalie there in time. So okay, they're like, just back up. So I'm fine, whatever. I'll just back up. And I don't even take warm up that game because my wrist is just destroyed.
Oh, geez.
So then I'm backing up Josh Harding.
Oh, okay.
Who was a great, I mean, he was probably the best minor league goalie I ever played with.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell, like you talk about, like, can you tell if this guy will make it or that guy will make it? Like, I could tell that guy was going to make it. So I'm backing him up. He cramps up, has to leave the game in the late in the third period. So I have to go in there, and I don't even know if I can catch a puck. I definitely don't want to. So I'm hoping they don't shoot there. And sure enough, I think probably the first shot, glove hand, and you can't stop your thumb. I'm trying to put your thumb from rotating like that. So anytime a puck would hit it, it was just like terrible pain. So a couple shots of the glove, ended up getting to a shootout. I think the last save might have been a glove save. Ended up winning in a shootout, but my wrist is destroyed.
Oh no.
So now I have to go take my physical agility test for the state police. And it's pretty minimum requirements where I need to do maybe 30 push-ups. Mm-hmm. So I go there, try to do the 30 I can't do 30 push-ups. So I think I did like 28. I kind of lost count.
Oh no.
And so now I get one retake, and if I fail my retake, I'm basically out of the pool of applicants. I'm like
permanently deferred.
Like,
that's tough.
Yeah, like last night I was a professional athlete and I can't even pass this physical agility test. So luckily enough, I was barely able to squeak out 30. And then as soon as I got back to Houston, I had surgery on my wrist. And I think that was pretty much the end of my career. So, I mean, in the last 3 years I played, I had a broken ankle and surgery on both my wrists, and then tore my groin. So, I mean, you fall apart, and I didn't retire. Like, people just stopped paying me. So I decided to do something else. Right. So, I mean, I didn't have a press conference. So, I mean, it's just we just kind of, the guys in my little group of friends, I guess, where, we make it here or there, or, never really established. And we just kind of fade into the sunset, and just people forget about us. So
right.
That's how it goes.
At least you got into something meaningful afterwards, where you're still giving something to people that contributes positively. So
yeah, I definitely enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm actually in the K9 unit now. So
very nice.
Have the fun to work with the dog and do a lot of different things. So I enjoy that, and it's definitely a different line of work than what I used to do.
It's, definitely a different world. But again, a lot of the values still carry the same through there.
Definitely.
With teamwork and with that not giving up, the winning mentality, that's all part of that.
Yeah, definitely can't give up.
Let's see. What would you say, looking back throughout your entire hockey career, was your favorite memory out of everything, and why?
No, it's a tough one.
I like to ask those tough questions.
I think the best memory was probably that game in Colorado, just because that's the one time like I felt like I belonged and I can really do this. And so it ended up being a 2-2 tie. And oddly enough, like, I swear to God that they scored a goal that got disallowed, that you could clearly see it went in on the video. I don't even know, because you're looking up at the screen, you're like, holy cow, that went in. And then I don't know who was reviewing it, or they felt bad for me, but they ended up calling it no goal, and that kind of saved the tie. So yeah, I guess my best memory is a tie. I'll take that.
Oh, very interesting. Do you have any favorite saves that pop into your mind where, you always replay it in your head that was an epic save I made? Do you have any of those?
No. I think I remember the goals more than the saves. I honestly can't think of a single save right now, and I can probably think of like 6 goals that went in. So I guess that's just the nature of the business. I mean, you're supposed to make the saves, so
right.
No use worrying about those ones. Might as well worry about the ones that went in.
Okay, well, you opened that can of worms there. Which goal against haunts you the most?
I think I made a tactical mistake of racing Peter Bondra for a puck in in Washington, and I lost the race clearly, and he went around me and scored. So I think that's probably the most. I remember that one. I remember Joe Sakic's goal, 5-hole. I remember the goal I let in Game 7 in Bridgeport. And yeah, I guess those three are the ones that come to mind right now. Thanks for bringing up great memories.
That's why I'm here. Since we're on that as well, obviously you'd like to get all those shots back to make those stops or not let Peter Bondra around you there. But do you have any regrets in your pro hockey career at all? Something you would like to rewind and then make it better, at least possibly make it better?
Yeah, I don't think I have any regrets. You know, they're all experiences. I mean, I guess the one game I'd like to play was that one game in Arizona after the game in Colorado, where I felt probably the most comfortable I felt at that level. So I guess if I could go back to time and play in any of those games, it'd be that game, because that was the best I felt, and that would have been the best version of me. And
right.
You know, other than that, I don't have. I mean, you have regrets. I think the closer you are to when you retired, and I think, you know, if you keep interviewing people in similar situations to me, I think you got to probably give them about 10 years before you try to talk to them. Otherwise, they're not going to answer the phone. So I think you come to terms of what happened and, you know, the experiences along the way. And at some point, after enough time goes by, you can kind of accept that, you know, you accomplished something that a lot of people weren't able to do. And you can feel good about that and kind of go on with your life.
Very nice. That's nice analytical, well thought out answer. I like that. Seems to be consistent as well. I know one of our episodes, one of our guests though did say his biggest regret was that he wasn't more upfront and a little bit more aggressive with management, because he thought he wanted a bigger chance. But that's again, everyone's unique experience.
Yeah.
They're individual things that haunt them, I guess. So, all right, now we can get on to the one question one of our viewers asked earlier. The question I have is, did you ever keep anything from your playing career in your own collection? And if so, what's your most prized piece? So, of course, one of our viewers also wanted to see the goalie masks. So, we'd all be curious to see some of the stuff, hear about some of the stuff you got.
So I guess this is the one from that I got called up from Binghamton with.
Oh wow!
So it's an Eddie mask with Bishop paint job.
Oh wow!
It was actually my Binghamton helmet, and I'm lucky that my colors matched. Otherwise, it could have looked even more ridiculous if I would have been in like red pads and a red helmet. So my colors matched good for Tampa. Might have been part of their thought process in playing me. Who knows? But so this helmet's probably the most important, because I think that kind of signifies, we talked about the odd accomplishment that probably won't be broken for various reasons, not having to do with me being any better than anybody else.
Right.
But this helmet is basically that experience, and so that one's important to me. I dug out the stick. It's been in my attic for a while, so I'll actually put that up, and then the other helmets, I'll have to reach back.
Oh, for sure.
Am I back?
You were back.
So this one is the Houston Aeros helmet. So I kept with the skull theme,
right,
and it has kind of the pilot.
You wore that one with Minnesota as well in your call-up, eh?
So I usually put the NHL logo on the back.
Yeah.
And then this one was the Bridgeport one.
Oh, awesome.
So it's the same with the skull theme, and it's more of a cat for the Sound Tigers. and then it has the Islander logo, and the demo. That's my son's name's Dimitri.
Oh, okay.
So that was the shortened version for that. So that's why that's on the helmet.
Awesome.
And those last two were both Warwick helmets with Bishop paint, and then this was the Portland Pirate one.
Oh,
which
that's
was
awesome.
Just an iTech one.
I've never seen that one before, so yeah, that's cool.
It's for sale if you want it. Give me a call.
Oh, we got the jersey, so then I'd have to, have to move one of them then.
But the helmets are cool. They're
absolutely.
There's something that I enjoy, but I guess the only one that I'm really tied to would be the one from Binghamton, because this is the helmet I scored the goal into, and then it's kind of it's the helmet that signifies the journey for me, right, going through that one crazy year where basically I started on a Greyhound bus getting sent down from Rochester to Binghamton, and I ended up on a charter flight coming back from, I think, Ottawa to Tampa. So I know it was a crazy year.
Wow. I couldn't even imagine it, but yeah, that's amazing. And then obviously the masks in general, though, I mean, they're unique pieces of artwork on their own. I mean, that's a lot of people in some of the communities are always complaining, oh, why is this game worn mask $1,000, $2,000, $3,000? Well, it's not just a mask. I mean, it's a sign of someone's personality. It's something that's a lot of art and a lot of,
because I think because this helmet, like a Warwick I think the helmet is $1,500. Like, I think just the helmet is, and then the cages, these are titanium cages, which I think were $500 more bucks, and then I think they cost $500 to paint them. So I mean, the prices I've seen for them are, I mean, they're not even that much more than what they cost to have made anyway. But they're cool. The helmets are cool. People love to see them.
Oh yeah, I got a few of them in the museum collection there. I got Steve Passmore mask, got David Goverd's old cage mask, Steve Penny old cage mask. I have one of Arturs Urbe's Jofa buckets in there.
Yeah, the old school. There you
go. Ron Lowe bucket. Yeah.
He had the best equipment. Because another story, so the pads I had when I was in Binghamton. So I mean, Binghamton is the bottom of the barrel for equipment. So like, if somebody orders pads from Coho and you're in the NHL, they get them first, and then this league, then this league, then this league, then this league, and then eventually, like, you might get some pads in Binghamton. So I had Coho pads, and then I think they're the ones on the picture that you showed. They're kind of the older school ones, like Patrick Waugh had, with kind of the flare on the top or whatever. But mine were all bent and twisted, and they were all messed up. To the point, I think I was in Toronto, and our equipment guy calls in the Coho rep and like says, "Hey, come here, look at this." And the guy was mortified, like, because he's looking at these pads, and they're nothing that should be anywhere near an NHL rink. Like, they're like the maintenance guy made them in the back room. Like, they're twisted, they're not even straight. So I think I had new pads when I got home in summer within like a month. Nice. Like, it's just the crazy stuff like that. I mean, people would be shocked, I guess, at the different levels of pro hockey compared to, I mean, you have the NHL, you have the AHL, and then, I mean, what's happening at those levels, what guys are making for money. I mean, in Binghamton, guys were ordering skate laces. I mean, the budget is just totally different than I mean, the NHL is unbelievable. I mean, those guys get treated great. The travel is great. The flights, just everything top notch, and you stay in the best hotel and get treated unbelievable. And then, even in the American Hockey League, I mean, you're on the bus and it's a grind, and, guys are just trying to pay their dues and make it to the big leagues.
Oh yeah. It's again funny you mentioned the Coho, how a little twisted, mangled set there gets them all worked up. I'd hate to see what they thought about Arturs Urbe's equipment, which was
he was making them himself, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was like sewing them, repairing them on his own. He'd break it in by getting the team bus driver to drive over them, so they looked like real relics.
Yeah,
but I guess he was
getting the job done.
All right, so for anyone who's watching the show, we are getting close to the end here. So if you have any last-second questions, don't hesitate to put them into that comment section, whether it's YouTube or if you catch one of our 2 surviving Facebook streams that are still going. And in the meantime, we'll ask my final question. So this is a question I ask in every episode of the show because I feel it's important to get this perspective because you are someone who lived a dream that every young player aspires to achieve. Do you have any advice for kids or the parents of a kid who may want to be pro hockey players one day?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a 2-part to the kids. I mean, never give up on your dreams. Always be working. Try your best. I mean, you're going to have to accept the outcomes, but I mean, always work to get better and, you know, don't ever give up. Don't let anybody else tell you you're this, that, or the other, and kind of make your own path and go from there. To the parents, I'd say, I mean, your concern should not be at all having that your kid's going to play in the NHL because the likelihood isn't there. I mean, they should have fun, enjoy the sport, because the sport's kept alive by, I mean, the fans and the people who collect stuff. And I mean, the athletes are only allowed to do it because there's millions and millions of people who are interested in watching it or, you know, paying for this, that, or the other. So, I mean,
right.
Be a fan. I mean, you don't have to make it to the NHL to be part of the experience. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, especially in the minor leagues, some of the, you know, the booster members and that are just integral pieces of that team. So I guess it's kind of a weird answer because my story was so weird with, you know, kind of keeping at your dream. But my goal was never to play in the NHL. I was just happy to be playing. I was satisfied playing in United Hockey League. I mean, I never thought, well, geez, I'm never going to make it to the NHL. I might as well be done. You know, I was like, well, I enjoy playing. I'm going to play. And, you know, if I can move up a level, great. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I'm just happy to be able to do this for the period of time I can. I mean, our careers have a certain shelf life, and
right.
You just kind of do it as long as you can and get whatever memories you can along the way. And at some point, it all comes to an end and you move on.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. That's good advice. Absolutely. And I mean, yeah, ultimately having fun and just enjoying every step of the way versus focusing on just that one goal of the NHL.
It's a tough goal to have. I mean, that goal would make, because it was never I think I said it was never my goal. I mean, I was just, you know, if you're a peewee playing house, your goal should maybe to move up to a travel team or whatever. And then you're going to have to take it in steps, because if your goal is to make it to the NHL, I mean, you'd have to be super special for that to be accomplished from an early age. So just have fun, play different sports. I mean, hockey's a great sport and it's a lot of fun, but I mean, I've seen a lot of guys with more talent than other guys who just lose the desire to do it. Because at some point you have to really want it, and it has to be deep in your core. You can't just fake it. It becomes way too difficult at some point. So if you are too consumed at a young age, you're just going to burn out, because you can't, that type of commitment just isn't going to last.
Oh yeah, and then as we talked about at the beginning of the show here, like really the odds are astronomical, especially for a goalie. Really, it sucks to be kind of a ball buster at times, but it's also being realistic. Like in 120 years of the NHL, there's been 828 goalies to make it to regular season or playoffs, and that even includes left wings, forwards, defensemen, even a head coach who dressed as a goalie in that number. So the real number is probably under 800 that actually were pure goalies who made it. So it's
you'll have to figure, because the number of guys who played more than like 100 games has to be tiny.
The list drops off very heavy once you go like,
because 100 games, maybe 80 or so, but that's like 2 solid years as like as a starter. So I mean, the number of guys are able to do that, because I mean, I enjoyed the journey and it was awesome, but I mean, I'm back in the real world with a real job. I mean, it's not an investment in your future, being a millionaire. I mean, the guys who are able to do that is way smaller. So, I mean, it's not an investment, I guess. And no one should look at this job as an investment, because it's going to fail every time. Like it's got to be something you enjoy, that you want to do, and you should be willing to do it, at this level, like you would at this level. And if you don't, it'll, at some point you're just going to lose interest.
Absolutely. Again, yeah, if you have that one goal in mind, then it's easier to kind of be disappointed when you're not noticing the progress versus you just have fun and then good things can happen.
Hopefully.
All right. So we do have one final question. We did kind of touch on it, but maybe if we can mention another goalie in there as well. Carl Langer on YouTube asked, do you have any favorite goaltending partners? So you mentioned already Wade Dubielewicz is one of your top ones. Did you have any other notable ones?
I mean, the guys in the NHL, I mean, probably, I mean, Hobby Bolin was, I mean, because that was like 2 years before they won the cup. So just to be on the ice with somebody like that and watch him do drills and watch him practice and to learn from them that way was great for me. There's everybody along the way was good. And, I enjoyed each experience. Every one of them was different, but goalie partners wise, I guess, me and Doobie had a good year. So
absolutely. And yeah, as you said earlier, you had pretty much a good relation with all of your goaltending partners. One of our past guests, he had a very strong opinions about a former NHL goalie as well, but you'd have to watch the Steve Passmore episode, which is episode 5, to find out.
Yeah, there you go. Get a plug in.
A little plug.
I listened to that one. So, because Steve was kind of where I wanted to be when I first came into the league, where I was like in the East Coast of the UHL, and he was like a guy that I recognized that was, kind of working his way up. And I think that, and I could be wrong, but when I talked about like where I was saying no to call-ups and stuff, one of those call-ups was with Hamilton.
Right.
And I had said no, because they just needed a guy to sit the bench, and whether Steve got called up or something else happened, because that was
would have been 98, 99. That's when Steve was called up to the NHL. That was the last year he was affiliated with the Oilers. Yeah, it might have been, because I remember his name. I don't think we've ever met. And then he's just a guy who was, because the goalie world's a small world. Like you think probably nobody remembers your name, but everybody does. Like everybody kind of like you're following where guys are like moving up and down, especially like the bubble guys who are kind of up and down and here and there, and you kind of follow guys' progress. So Steve was definitely somebody that I followed when I was coming into the league, for a guy to look at him get it done and move his way up. And he had a good long career as well, and made the most of it. And he's a happy dude, has a good normal job now as well, and guy who's a lot of fun to have on the show as well. So again, if you haven't watched episode 5 with Steve Passmore. I'll bring up one final question because this one is, I guess, a personal thing to someone. So our next question, our last one for tonight, from Drew Sledge on YouTube. He writes, I'm working on making it onto a junior team. Any advice or anything that surprised you about the jump to juniors?
I remember to juniors, it seems like it was the first time the shooters could really start pulling the puck and changing the angle. So just be aware of what handed they are, and then where the shot might come, because it might come from a different angle. The release is going to be a little bit different. I remember specifically seeing that one because I went to the USHL when I was a senior in high school, and I remember that because you're playing against guys who are 20 years old, and they're going to shoot the puck a little bit different. But just work hard, play your game, get in the net first. My dad always told me, get in there first. Don't sit in the corner and wait for somebody else to get in the net. Get in the net.
Oh yeah, and then at first it might come as a shock when the shots are a little quicker, but that's the beauty about being a human, is we adapt really, really quickly. Where what was once really fast, it's normal afterwards. So
yeah, it can't be any worse than Joe Sakic shooting through your legs. You'll
lasering it through. All right, so we have come to the end of episode number 6. So want to thank Mr. Dieter Kochan for coming onto the show and having a nice 2-hour-long chat with us, telling us some great stories about his career. So again, I appreciate it a lot that you took your time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. And again, it's always enlightening with any of our guests on the show.
My pleasure. I definitely enjoy what you're doing and appreciate kind of the collection that you're amassing. So good luck, and
but surely.
Maybe I'll try to contact Wade Dubielewicz. Or you said you had what?
I do have one of his 07-08 Islanders jerseys in the museum collection, but
there you go.
Derek Gustafson. I don't have anything of his yet.
Yeah, I'll see. Maybe I can track him down.
Awesome. So again, thanks again for coming onto the show. Can't thank you enough. It's still always an honor. This is why my way of vicariously living an NHL dream that I've had since I was a kid. Just I was terrible in net, and I couldn't skate for any. If I couldn't save my life for skating. So this is my contribution to it all.
Well,
so
it's a good one.
Thank you. So for all of you viewers who are out there, have yourselves an excellent day. Bye-bye.